election is around the corner, which means Queenslanders will have the very happy chance to vote out the shoddy, incompetent Labor government that has been in power longer than I care to remember. And I'm thrilled to have with me to dissect all the latest, the One Nation candidate for the seat of Keppel and Pauline Hanson's Chief of Staff, James Ashby. James, welcome to the program. Great to have you as always. Now, early voting has opened in Queensland, and according to the Courier Mail's exit poll of 1,000 early voters across 10 seats, 48.2% of them gave their primary vote to the LNP. Now, goes without saying, but this is terrible news for the Queensland Labor government, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it does appear on the surface to be quite terrible. But what I am seeing on the polling booths, Daisy, I did witness the way in which News Corp have been trying to do those exit polls, and I must say, it's not very accurate. The one journalist I saw on the polling booth in Rockhampton and again down at Keppel, they were just taking random samples of people. Not everybody would speak to them, and so their objective was to try and get 100 people. Well, it took 2 hours to get that, and of course, as I say, not everybody wanted to speak to them. So I think it's more a litmus test. It's not a real accurate exit poll at this point. But with that said, we are seeing a shift against Labor. Whether it's as big as this or not, time will tell. We're only a few days off knowing those results by next Saturday night.
Yes, I mean, maybe there could be a good chance that there are a few angry anti-Labor voters out there who can't wait to tell whoever will listen that they voted against them. But look, you're right, we shall have to wait and see until polling day. Now, look, Premier Stephen Miles and opposition leader David Crisafulli faced off in another debate this week, and Crisafulli was criticised for being evasive on a number of key questions. Now, look, the LNP has a comfortable 10-point lead at the moment in Newspoll, but could that evaporate if Queenslanders aren't happy with Crisafulli's lack of transparency?
Well, David Crisafulli has to watch how he goes about answering these questions. Simply not answering them is not what Queenslanders want to hear. They want to hear from this next new Premier what he intends to do moving forward. You can't play the small target for too much longer, because at the end of the day, come October 27, he's likely to be Premier, and we are then going to have one big target on David Crisafulli's back. If anything he has told us or refused to tell us over these last couple of months, if he's evasive moving forward, it will bite him on the backside. But I do know that a lot of people have come up to me at the polling booths, particularly here in Yeppoon, and said they weren't impressed with that most recent debate that was had this week.
And one of the things he was evasive about was, of course, the question of abortion. You know, as we know, Labor's pushing this scare campaign to try to make out that the LNP is going to take away women's ability to kill unborn children. I mean, I'm not a fan of abortion, but whatever you think of abortion, the whole thing is kind of a lie. Look, but it is a tricky issue for Crisafulli to navigate. How do you think Queenslanders will react to him being evasive on that? Because Queenslanders are quite socially conservative, but I'm not sure how they'll react to the abortion issue. What do you think?
Well, I know as a fact that the LNP have been telling their candidates in regional areas like mine here in Keppel and again in Rockhampton, they've told their candidates not to participate in forums that were hosted by the combined churches in our area. So they just made last-minute phone calls and left empty seats on the stage there when they should have been presenting themselves to answer those questions as candidates. David Crisafulli hasn't explained himself as to why he won't respond to this. He simply said that, no, we now back Labor's plans to support abortion right up until the day before a woman can give birth to a child, which is a gruesome consideration for any mother out there, especially mother-to-be or anyone who's got young kids of their own. The reality of this legislation is a woman can present and get 2 doctors to sign off on an abortion right up until the day before birth. And worse still, the legislation that was passed by Labor in 2018 allows for a child to be born alive through a botched abortion, and yet they are left either in a petri dish or left on a sterile bench to die alone. No medical assistance whatsoever. David Crisafulli should be explaining this scenario to voters and saying, look, I'm happy to at least this bill. I think it's important for unborn children and those babies that are born alive, but also too that there've got to be some measures in there to protect these mothers-to-be who may just be going through economical hardship or whatever the problem may have been that's just made them rethink having this child. Perhaps we need some better counselling services made available to them through the legislation to at least say, look, you've given this great consideration before going through with the termination, especially a late-term termination.
I mean, I would love to see the LNP have some courage and actually push back on these really extreme pro-abortion laws and couple it with, as you said, some policies for pregnancy centres and support for women who fall unexpectedly pregnant, because I think a lot of women are coerced into thinking their only option is an abortion, when if they had more support services, well, they might likely reconsider, but, you know, not going to hold my breath for the LNP to do that, unfortunately. But enough of the LNP. You, James, are the candidate for Keppel. You are currently on the thick of the campaign trail for One Nation. So tell me, what is the vibe like on the ground at the moment?
I've got to admit, Daisy, I've always said to these candidates in past elections, no, it's easy. Just go out there and line up on these early voting booths. It's so easy, but I tell you what, the days are long. But the conversations are very telling. There's a lot of very disgruntled people out there, not just with Labor, but with both major parties. And, you know, conversations with people, particularly around cost of living. You're hearing from a lot of these pensioners that are on fixed incomes. They're not about to get a pay rise anytime too soon. And, you know, I had one bloke tell me yesterday that a loaf of bread just between last week and this week has gone from $5 to $5.90. Whoa. Effectively, it's a 20% increase.
Gosh.
Now, when you sort of add all those things up, you know, the increase to electricity prices, increase to the general basket grocery items that even you and I go and grab each week. Pensioners don't have the luxury of getting a wheel of cheese and some crackers because that fixed income that they're on just doesn't go as far as it used to. Also, the rent prices, they continue to plague people. We've got some wonderful people that live here that service, you know, the food industry or retail industries. And again, they're not overly well-paid industries that these people work in. So when they see increases to their rents when their term of lease is up, go up by $100 to $200 every single week, these are the things that are impacting on everyday people. You can read about them all you like in the newspaper, but until you actually see the heartfelt message direct one-on-one with these people, that's the telling part, that people are really struggling, and it's coming through on the polling booths. They don't have the confidence in the two major parties because there are, as we've discussed in the past, there are levers that all levels of government can pull to affect change. And it's one thing to go after the supermarkets, but when you've got pensioners that are still suffering the increases to their insurances, it could only be third-party insurance on their contents in the home, but when you're seeing 80% and the state government still charging 9% stamp duty on all of their insurance policies, something's got to give. So I say this, if One Nation's elected to this next parliament in Queensland here, we're going to be attempting to pull those levers and put the pressure on this next Premier to say enough's enough. You know, John Howard said he'd get rid of all these extra taxes when GST came in 2000, but they're still impacting upon people every single day, and through this cost of living crisis, it's only getting worse.
Absolutely, James. And look, just before we go, you touched on it then, but lots of Queenslanders will be of the perception that they just need to vote for the LNP in order to get this bad Labor government out. But tell us, why should they vote for One Nation instead?
One Nation have always stood up for the battler, and there's never been so many battlers in this state like we're seeing today. Not of their own making. This is often the making of our state and federal governments. And what we have a habit of is speaking up loud and clear for people. We call us the squeaky wheel if you like, but the squeaky wheel has a tendency to get the oil. And in regional parts of this state, we have really been forgotten. $8 billion worth of coal royalties siphoned off each year from just to the west of me here. They go down to vanity projects in Brisbane, down in the southeast corner, and regional Queensland's forgotten. Yet we've got some of the most serious growth that we've already experienced, but some detrimental growth coming our way. Stuff we can't avoid, but we can better plan for it. Better schools, certainly increased hospital facilities for people in the regional areas. And just remember this, every time you give a number one preference to the major parties, they're collecting a combined $9 this year for every single vote you give them from the Electoral Commission. So they will try their scare tactics, because a lot of this comes down to big bucks. And we want to take that money away from them, make sure it's put to better use on people like your viewers out there who are struggling, rather than paying into the coffers of our major political parties that are going to spend tens of millions of dollars on this campaign. We have taken a very conservative approach to the election and made sure that we reduce our spending but still get a clear message through. And it's only through outlets like yours, Daisy, that we're able to do that nice and clearly.
Well, it is always an absolute pleasure, James Ashby, to have you on. Fantastic, as always, to hear from you. All the very best for polling day. Wishing you all the luck in the world, and cannot wait to debrief on the other side of it all.
I appreciate your support, Daisy. Cheers.
Well, that's all we have time for this evening on the Daisy Cousins Show. And as always, I really hope you enjoyed watching the program as much as I enjoyed hosting it.